Picture this for a second. The ropes are lined with people leaning forward. Phones are up. Every swing feels heavier than it should. And somewhere in the middle of all that noise, Bryson DeChambeau isn't just hitting a golf ball anymore. He's sending a message. Not with a press release. Not with a speech. Not even with some dramatic quote. He's sending it with the one thing golf understands better than anything else. Pressure. Real pressure. The kind that makes entire organizations look over their shoulder. Because whether you love him, doubt him, root for him, or still don't quite know what to make of him, there is one truth that keeps getting louder. Bryson has become impossible to ignore. And that might be the most unsettling thing of all for the PGA Tour. Not just that he can still win. Not just that fans still show up. But that he keeps proving the modern golf world is changing. And he might be one of the biggest reasons why. And by the end of this story, you'll understand why this wasn't just another strong week for Bryson. It felt like a warning. If you truly love golf, if this game means something to you, and if you enjoy stories that go deeper than scores and headlines, then subscribe and become part of this golf family. Because golf is more than a sport to people like us. It's emotion, memory, pressure, heartbreak, and moments we never forget. For a long time, Bryson DeChambeau felt like the golfer who almost wasn't supposed to fit. He came in talking differently, thinking differently, building his game differently. Same length irons, numbers, speed, power, science. For some fans, it was fascinating. For others, it felt like he was trying to solve a game that was never meant to be solved. And that tension followed him everywhere. But that's what makes this story so interesting. Bryson didn't disappear when the noise got loud. He didn't shrink when people rolled their eyes. He leaned into it. He made himself bigger, stronger, more polarizing, more watchable. He became one of those rare players where even people who say they don't like him still end up watching him. And that alone matters more than people want to admit. Because the real message Bryson is sending to the PGA Tour isn't just about one leaderboard or one result. It's about attention. It's about magnetism. It's about what happens when a player becomes bigger than the old rules of how golf fame used to work. But here's the part nobody talks about. Bryson's impact doesn't begin when he arrives at the first tee. It begins before the round even starts. The anticipation around him is different. Fans expect something. Maybe a bomb drive. Maybe a wild escape. Maybe a moment of brilliance. Maybe total chaos. But they expect emotion. And in today's sports world, that is gold. Golf has always respected consistency, discipline, history, and tradition. And it should. That's part of what makes the game beautiful. But the modern fan also wants access. Personality. Risk. Stakes. They want to feel like something unforgettable could happen at any second. Bryson understands that better than most. He doesn't play like he's trying to blend into the wallpaper of elite golf. He plays like every hole is a challenge to be attacked. And when that style works, it doesn't just create birdies. It creates tension. It creates conversation. It creates the kind of energy that makes people stop scrolling and start watching. That is a powerful thing in golf right now. And this is where everything changed. At some point, Bryson stopped being just a controversial name and started becoming something much more dangerous to ignore. A full-blown force in the golf conversation. Not part of it. A force in it. Because now, when Bryson contends, it doesn't feel like a side story. It feels central. Fans debate him. Analysts break him down. Other players feel his presence. The crowd reacts differently. You can feel it. Even when he isn't saying much, his game is saying plenty. It's saying, I can still move the needle. It's saying, people still care. It's saying, the future of golf might belong to the players who create emotion, not just clean scorecards. And if you're the PGA Tour, that has to make you think. Not panic, but think. Because what do you do when one of the most talked about figures in golf keeps reminding the world that entertainment matters? That personality matters. That fans will follow boldness. That golf is no longer consumed the same way it was 10 or 15 years ago. Wait till you hear what happened next, because this is where the emotional side of the story really hits. Bryson's journey has not been smooth. That's important. This isn't some perfect hero story where everything magically lined up. He's had criticism. He's had awkward moments. He's had public doubts. He's had stretches where people questioned whether the whole experiment had gone too far. And honestly, that's part of why so many fans connect with him now. Because beneath the power and the headlines, There is something deeply human about a player who keeps rebuilding himself in public. Golf can humble anybody. It can expose your ego, your timing, your confidence, your patience, all in one afternoon. Bryson has lived that reality in front of millions. He knows what it feels like to be judged. He knows what it feels like to be doubted. He knows what it feels like to hear people say, maybe this won't last. And then he keeps coming back anyway. That's the kind of thing golf fans understand at a deep level. Maybe we'll never hit it like Bryson. Maybe we'll never play under that kind of pressure. But we know what it means to fight your swing, fight your nerves, fight your own mind, and still show up again the next day. That's why this story carries weight. Bryson isn't just making noise. He's surviving, adapting, evolving. But here's the twist that makes this bigger than one player. The message to the PGA Tour may not be, "You need me." It may be something even colder than that. It may be, "The game is changing whether you're comfortable with it or not." That is what makes this feel chilling. Because golf's old power structure was built on something stable. The tour had the deepest fields, the strongest week-to-week identity, the biggest routine platform. And for years, that was enough. But now the world is fragmented. Fans watch highlights differently. They follow personalities directly. They consume stories in clips, podcasts, social media, and creator channels. The audience doesn't wait to be told who matters anymore. They decide for themselves. Bryson has tapped into that reality in a way that feels very modern. He's not just a player to a lot of people. He's an event, a talking point, a personality, a risk taker. And when someone like that also backs it up with elite-level golf, it becomes impossible to dismiss as hype. That's the threat. Not that Bryson is the only answer. Not that he's perfect. Not that one player can reshape the entire sport overnight. It's that he represents a truth the golf world can no longer hide from. Fans are hungry for connection. They want something real, something bold, something they can feel. And Bryson, for better or worse, makes people feel something. And this is where the story becomes surprisingly emotional. Because under all the debate, there's also a guy who clearly still cares deeply about proving himself. You can see it in the intensity. You can hear it in the way he talks after big moments. There's pride there, relief, fire, maybe even a little pain. The kind that only comes from someone who remembers every insult and every dismissal. That doesn't make him a victim. It makes him driven. And golf has always loved driven players. The ones who don't quite fit. The ones who challenge the room. The ones who make the establishment uncomfortable. The ones who force the game to ask hard questions about what it wants to become. Think about that for a second. The biggest names in golf history were not always the safest personalities. They were the ones who changed how people saw the game. Some did it with grace. Some with swagger. Some with force. But they moved the sport by refusing to be ordinary. Bryson is doing that in his own way. But here's the part nobody wants to say out loud. If Bryson keeps showing up in big moments, keeps drawing interest, keeps proving he can live under the brightest lights, then this stops being a temporary storyline. It becomes a long-term reality. And once something becomes reality in sports, institutions eventually have to adapt. That is the message. Not a scream, not a scandal, not some theatrical warning. A reality check. The kind that arrives quietly at first, then suddenly feels obvious. And for fans, that creates such a strange mix of emotions. There's excitement because golf feels alive when big personalities matter. There's tension because the sport still feels divided. There's hope because talent this compelling should be seen on the biggest stages. There's doubt because nobody knows exactly where the future lands. And there's inspiration too, because whatever you think of Bryson, he has refused to let the story end where other people wanted it to end. That's powerful. And maybe that's why this resonates beyond Bryson himself. It speaks to what golf fans really want. Not fake drama, not forced narratives, but real stakes, real individuality, real pressure, real redemption. The feeling that when someone tees it up, something larger is on the line than just a check or a trophy. Bryson brings that feeling. That's why people watch. That's why the conversation keeps following him. And that's why the message feels colder than any quote ever could. Because the message is simple. Ignore me if you want. The crowd won't. And that's what makes this such a meaningful golf story. It's not really about choosing sides. It's about recognizing what matters in this era of the game. Competitive fire still matters. Legacy still matters. The biggest stages still matter. But so does presence. So does courage to be different. So does the ability to pull people into the story. Bryson DeChambeau has become one of those stories. And whether that excites you or unsettles you, it says something important about where golf is headed next. This is why stories like this matter. Because they remind us that golf is never just about technique. It's about identity. It's about pressure. It's about who can carry the weight when the whole world is watching. Bryson's message to the PGA Tour may not have come through words at all. It came through relevance, through resilience, through the undeniable truth that in modern golf, the players who make people care hold real power. And maybe that's what this whole story comes down to. Not whether Bryson fits the old picture of golf, but whether the old picture of golf is already changing. So what do you think? Is Bryson DeChambeau sending the PGA Tour a real warning? Or is this just another moment that feels bigger than it really is? Drop your thoughts in the comments. And if you love golf stories that go beyond the surface, stay with this channel. We're building something here for real golf fans. And I'd